Today in Draw My Life, the lost episode of Loud House. Surely you heard about the series The Loud House. In it, we have Lincoln Loud, who is an 11-year-old boy, well, now 12, who tries to survive at home among his 10 sisters, 5 older, Lori, Lenny, Luna, Luan, Lynn, and 5 younger, Lucy, Lana, Lola, Lisa, and Lily, and his parents, Lynn Loud Sr. and Rita Loud. Lincoln is the only boy in the family, and for many, this is the most creepy thing about the series. If you don't mind that we destroy your childhood, subscribe and activate the bell. Let's talk about the worst episode of the series according to its followers. This one is titled No Such Luck. In it, Lincoln is rejected by his family as they believe he has caused Lynn's team to lose the game and is seen as a magnet for bad luck. At first, Lincoln is relieved that he doesn't have to attend his sister events. However, there comes to a point where he's told to eat separately from the rest. They don't let him go to the movies with his family, they take him to sleep outside. No matter what Lincoln says or does, he can convince his parents to take him back. Finally, at Lynn's next game, Lincoln dresses up as the team's mascot and goes to see his sister. The team wins, and Lincoln reveals himself to his family. At that moment, everybody assumes their mistake, and Lynn apologizes to her brother. After this episode, critics poured like rain. It seemed to viewers that Lincoln had received a super abusive and unfair treatment for a matter as absurd as bad luck. In fact, a collection of signatures was started so that the episode became eliminated, since they said that it was a bad example for children. To all this, the creator of the series, Chris Savino, replied that Lincoln got what he deserved. Anyway, let's go back to No Such Luck. As a result of this terrible episode, many fanfics and creepypasta stories have emerged. We're going to tell you about one of the most terrifying, the one that talks about what happened after No Such Luck. Some call it Lynn's Lament, others Lincoln's death. Whatever the episode, lost or not, it starts like this. In some cases, the intro is the same, and in others, it's a bit different. Music is said to be different, and there's also those who say that the title of this episode appears. At the end of the opening credits, we see the Loud House, and hear Lynn Sr. calling Lincoln for breakfast. Later, inside the house, we see Lincoln come down with a squirrel costume on. His father smiles at him and announces that he can finally remove that costume, since they were already convinced that the superstition didn't work. All his sisters look at him smiling, all except for Lynn. Lincoln was very happy and went to take it off running. Lenny noticed Lynn's reaction and asked, "What is wrong, Lynn? Aren't you happy for Lincoln?" To which Lynn replied, "I still don't trust this very unlucky kid." Luna reassured him, "Come on, the other day Lincoln came to my concert, and when he came out of the bathroom, he forgot to put out his costume, and still the concert was incredible." Thus, they all tried to convince Lynn until she said, "Okay, I'll give him a chance." The next day, while the Loud siblings ate together, Lynn hit the table, paralyzing all the conversations. "Shut up! I have one important thing to say. My final big game is in next week, and I need someone to help me train." They all insisted that Lincoln was the ideal person. Lincoln agreed, but Lynn didn't think it was such a good idea, although she had no choice but to accept. Then we see the two siblings training. The strangest thing about this part was that they both had very realistic bruises. Days passed, and the day before Lynn's final game, after a hard training session, she took off her shoes and went to rest. Lynn, having seen that her brother was not giving her a bad luck, apologized to him for his behavior. Lincoln replied with a smile. Then Lynn got up to get something to eat and said goodbye to her brother. As Lincoln walked away, he noticed that Lynn had left her shoes. He grabbed them and went to take them to his sister. Yet, on the way, he accidentally steps on Cliff's tail. He got so angry that he started scratching Lincoln and Lynn's slippers. He was so enraged that he left the shoes completely destroyed. The scratches left on Lincoln's face were extremely realistic. You could tell how blood was spilling. Hearing her brother's screams, Lynn went to help him. But when she saw the smashed sneakers, her face took an expression of terrible fury, and she began to shout at Lincoln, "Look what you have done! You keep giving bad luck!" Lincoln tried to defend himself without any success. Then Lynn began to hit him so hard that cries of pain alerted Luna. She tried to separate them, but failed. Minutes later, we see ourselves in Lynn's room, whom Rita and Lynn Sr. were scolding. They tried to make Lynn see reason, but failed. She felt in every pore of her skin that her brother deserved the beating. Her parents were horrified at her attitude. Finally, the day of Lynn's game arrived. Her whole family was in the stands cheering her on. However, when Lynn saw Lincoln, she remembered the event of the previous day and became angry again. But immediately afterwards, she returned to concentrate on the game. In the first minutes of the game, the defense was on the opposing team, paralyzing Lynn, nailing the studs of their boots on her leg. The wounds were again hyper-realistic. The referee whistled a foul. They asked Link if she wanted to continue playing, and she said yes. However, from that moment on, every time she touched the ball, she missed her shot or the ball was easily taken away from her. Finally, and after much suffering, Lynn marked the decisive point of the match at her own goal, making her team lose. They all started booing her. When they left, the Loud family went to comfort Lynn, but when she saw Lincoln, her sadness vanished and her expression became irascible. Once at home, before going to sleep, Lynn told Lincoln to talk. In the courtyard, Lincoln tried to comfort his sister again. "Don't worry, Lynn. There will be other opportunities to make an effort." This made Lynn's face even more red. She frowned and said, "Damn you! You are to blame! You give me bad luck by breaking my slippers!" "But what are you saying, Lynn? Your obsessions with sneakers blinded you and made you play badly." At that point, Lynn went completely mad. She stood close to Lincoln, grabbed him by the neck, and lifted him up, preventing him from breathing. Then she dropped him to the ground and started kicking him hard all over the body, saying, "You deserve it, you garbage! The family will thank me!" Lynn kept hitting him harder and harder. Lincoln was in such pain that he couldn't even scream for help. He was crying silently. His wounds were seen with terrible detail. And Lynn's face? Her face was that of a person consumed by hatred. Then she stopped kicking him and slowly put one foot on his head. Then she did the same with the other foot, but with much more force. It shattered his skull completely. And his brains spread across the image. A sad song began to play, and the voice of Lynn Sr. was heard calling the siblings. Suddenly, he appeared in the courtyard, and when he saw the terrible scene, he was horrified and paralyzed. Then he walked up to Lincoln and started crying. Hearing it, the rest of the family came out to see what was happening. Upon discovering such horror, everyone began to cry and scream. Suddenly, Luna spotted Lynn off to the side, staring impassively with blood-stained sneakers. They all looked at her without knowing what to say, until Lynn Sr. recovered and shook his daughter for an answer. But Lynn was not moved. The father gave her a slap that suddenly brought her back to reality. Lynn looked down at her blood-stained feet and whispered, "What have I done?" Then she began to cry uncontrollably. Then the camera goes up and we see from above how the entire Loud family cries around Lincoln's body. Then the screen went black. 3 months later, we find ourselves in a cemetery looking at Lincoln Loud's headstone. And in front of this was Lynn looking very unkempt and dirty, with a bouquet of white flowers. She mourned the death of her brother and wept louder and louder. Eventually, the image began to wrap until it ended abruptly. It seemed like it was over, but no. The image came back, just to focus on a tree in the Loud yard where Lynn was hanging. Then the credits appear. What a story, right? Did you know it? Do you know any other missed episodes of this series? Let us know! And I hope I don't have to tell you that if you like horror stories, you should subscribe, right? Until the next video!